Welcome to Dreadful Digest, where we look at your favorite horror novels and rip apart their adaptations. I'm one of your hosts, Tessa Nelson.
I'm another host, Michael Estrada.
And I'm another one of your co-hosts. I'm Sam.
And today we are looking at I'm Thinking of Ending Things, both the book written by Iain Reid and the movie written and directed by Charlie Kaufman. This movie came out in 2020, and it was pretty topical at the time. I feel like a lot of people were talking about it. I had heard of it. And I felt like it encapsulated?
Yeah.
I said it right?
Yeah, you threw a little stank on the "yeah," but you know, encapsulated.
It encapsulated how people were feeling during that time, the kind of isolation and stuff. So even though we're covering it 4 years later, I feel like it's pretty prevalent today, you know?
Yeah, so true.
I don't know where that came from.
You're just speaking to the people, the feelings of the common man. That's what we all do here at Dreadful Digest.
So, how familiar were you guys with this book or the movie before we decided to cover it?
You go first.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm like completely cold. This is one of those movies that like on Instagram when people are like 10 thrillers you need to see. Like it would like
Really?
Yeah, I'd see it in like lists of like, you know, things that are like this one's gonna screw with your head. But you know, which is a fair assessment, as we'll get into.
It's just
but
pretty funny.
it's just like I don't know. I just like never really. I knew it was a Netflix original. It is a Netflix original, right?
Yeah,
it is.
I like second guessed myself. Yeah, I knew it was a Netflix original. I knew it was Charlie Kaufman, and I had heard generally that it just kind of, you know, a little wacky out there.
Goofy.
You could say that again.
A little goofy.
A little silly.
But that was it. I hadn't heard of the book, and I hadn't watched the movie when it came out. For some reason in 2020, I was a little preoccupied. I just feel like there might have been some other stuff going on, but
what could that be?
Yeah, what was going on in 2020?
That one didn't come up for me. So what about you, Michael?
I'd heard about it when it came out, the buzz around it, and the I guess you could say the polarized reception to it.
That's true.
And I'd always really wanted to watch it, but seemingly, this seems to be a recurring theme, I never got around to it. For whatever reason, I just didn't. So I was pretty excited to watch it for this, but yeah, I just heard people talk about it. Either they thought it was incredible or they thought it was dog water. And those types of movies usually are ones that I'm interested in seeing, because passionate opinions are usually a sign of something new, something interesting. So I wanted to watch it, but I hadn't watched it yet.
And now you watched it 4 years later. Would you
right
say,
on time.
Would you say it's still relevant today as it was in 2020?
Dude, yeah. Dude, the climate maybe has only gotten worse.
So I had heard about it because Dead Meat talked about it on their podcast.
Shout out.
Oh. And so I was like, ooh, this seems interesting. So I read the book. No, I watched the movie first. Really liked it. Read the book. I liked it as well. I think the movie visually has a lot to say, and it's really interesting, very stylistic. So I really latched onto that.
So to clarify, you watched and read the movie a while ago.
Yes,
Not
when it dropped.
Okay.
Yeah, well, not when it dropped, but like around the time in 2020. So, yeah, it's been fun revisiting it. I wouldn't say fun. The writer did a great job of making me very moody and upset when I was reading it. So he did his job correctly.
And, you know, I mean, if we're going for general impressions right now, I'll say like all of the books that we've read for this pod have been, you know, very high quality, but this might be the first one where I was genuinely excited to pick it up and I was disappointed to put it down. I was hooked like the entire time that we were reading it.
I have a similar thought. I believe I told you this before after I read it. Everything we've read up till now have been good in different ways. Maybe some are not that great, but you know, pretty good in different ways, but none of them have successfully, they're all supposed to be horror books, and none of them really successfully unnerved me, disturbed me, made me uncomfortable. This is the first book where I was actually like I listen to audiobooks. I don't read. And this is the first time listening to one where I was like actually like getting uncomfortable and having like a hard time. Like, this is weird.
Unnerved is the word.
Unnerved
Mhm.
is like the key word for the whole thing. So I have high praise for the book and for the movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, I bounced back and forth between the book and the audiobook. And yeah, the audiobook, creepy. Like some of the voices
Yeah.
used, like the caller is featured, and the voice that the audio narrator uses is so upsetting. I hate it, but it's so good because of that. So definitely puts you in a mood. So be warned. You will. It's not a fun time, but it is good.
Maybe we should put up
Fun,
a little trigger warning about this one. This
Yeah,
one
actually-
tackles some pretty heavy topics about depression and
mental health in
Yeah.
general, which is something that comes up in the genre frequently. Actually, a tangent moment. It's not really a tangent, but like I do want to say, like I think when we were back in like our first episode when we were talking about Annie Wilkes, we like referred to her as like crazy and like other vague mental health stuff. And I think that like it's funny because Annie as a character is kind of like funny, but like mental health is something that comes up like a lot in horror. And this is definitely one where I think it's more serious. I'd say, I mean, not that it's never like not serious. It is very unfortunate the way the genre kind of taps into like, oh, this person doesn't fit in, this person's weird or whatever as justification for any quote unquote abnormal behavior. That's just like a genre staple, I think,
Definitely.
in a lot of different ways, especially like older horror. It's always kind of like blamed on mental health condition, like, oh, they're schizophrenic, so horror or whatever, which is not reflective of human beings.
No.
And same thing here, I guess. There's going to be a lot of like very serious, I don't know if anybody else wants to speak on this, but I feel like there's a lot of very don't want to take anybody's personal mental health conditions and then inflate it into anything that it's not. I don't know. Can anybody help me out here?
Well,
I'm
in
doing
terms
the
of
trigger
like
warning.
that was the trigger warning?
That was my best.
Yeah, no, in terms of like the misery, like you mentioned, which they mentioned that she's crazy, that she's obviously our villain, but there is no villain here. So it takes the discussions on mental health pretty seriously. But yeah, based on the title, we are going to be talking about suicide. So
Oh yeah, I went in a very different direction with the trigger warning. I was just going with like in general, like mental health and horror.
Yep.
But yeah,
No,
that's true.
that's-
Suicide
yeah.
trigger warning specifically.
So feel free to skip it if you want to, but just letting you know. Jumping into the research section. I'm Thinking of Ending Things is a 2016 debut novel of Iain Reid, as mentioned.
Debut novel.
Debut novel. Isn't
Wow.
that crazy? He also wrote Foe, which is another horror novel and was also adapted. So we'll cover that eventually.
I saw
Ooh.
that. I saw a preview screening of that actually.
Really? Okay.
It's out though, right? It's out.
I think so. Yeah.
It's out now.
So eventually.
This is a
we'll get
recent
to
movie
it.
that came out?
Foe, yeah.
Mhm.
It has Saoirse Ronan.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Iain Reid drew on his experiences of growing up in a farm in remote Ontario.
Oh.
There you go. So we can definitely.
Shout out Ontario. Why did we do that? Did I miss something? Was there an inside joke that I missed about Ontario?
Isn't that where you're going? Ontario.
you're
Go to Vancouver.
Thank you. Never mind.
But it's like Canada.
I was like, yeah, hell yeah, Ontario. Let's hype it up.
I mean, yeah, it's Ontario.
Shout out Canada.
Shout out Canada.
It was NPR's best books of 2016.
Believe.
It was its best books.
Wait,
Was it on its list?
was on-
It's on NPR's best books of
Oh,
2016.
okay, gotcha. There you go.
My bad. That's what I got for the book. That was kind of it.
Really?
In terms of like background and stuff that I got. Moving on to the movie. It came out in 2020, as mentioned. It's considered a psychological thriller
Yeah.
written and directed by Charlie Kaufman, he's known for a bunch of movies, but a big one is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Interestingly enough, while the book is considered horror, like that's one of the genres listed, the movie is considered psychological thriller. It is not considered horror at all, which we'll obviously get into why I personally think it's not considered horror, but we'll get into that. So Charlie Kaufman, a little bit more about him. He's received an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay.
For what?
I couldn't
Oh.
I found it, but I was like, I don't know how to say the
Oh.
name of the movie.
Spell it. Or
What?
you can show me if
Well,
you like.
I
Is
have
it
to look it up.
Synecdoche, New York?
It might be that one.
Oh. Okay. Actually, that feels right. Wait, Eternal Sunshine.
He got it for Eternal Sunshine?
He won for Eternal Sunshine. Sorry, he won. I'm getting back in the mic. He won for Eternal Sunshine. He was nominated for Best Animated Feature for Anomalisa.
Anomalisa?
Thank you, Anomalisa. I haven't seen it.
He did Anomalisa? I didn't know that. Oh, shit. Okay.
He was a nominee for Best Adapted Screenplay for Adaptation, and then for Best Original Screenplay, a nominee for Being John Malkovich. But the only one he won for was Eternal Sunshine. Not
Okay.
surprising.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, the other ones were great as well, but everybody loves Eternal Sunshine.
Yeah, that's the one I
Never
hear
seen it.
most frequently.
You've never seen it?
No. Missed it.
Do you have any
Drop in the
thoughts?
comments if you think Michael should watch Eternal Sunshine in this palace.
Drop in the comments. Yeah.
Drop a sunshine emoji in our comments.
So 3 of his scripts appeared in the Writers Guild of America's list of 101 greatest movie screenplays ever written. And I, again, don't have the ones featured in that list.
I believe you.
Just 3 of them. 3 of his scripts are in there, just so you know.
Nice.
Moving on to the cast. Brie Larson was actually expected to play Jessie Buckley's character, so
Oh.
the leading lady, but she was obviously replaced by Jessie Buckley. This movie also stars Jesse Plemons, Toni Collette, and David Thewlis, aka Remus Lupin. Very excited to see him.
He's great in the movie. by
I
the
love
way.
him.
Yeah.
He's just such a dad.
I mean, all
you
of
know?
them. Same thing with Toni Collette. She just, especially
Oh,
with
yeah.
Hereditary. Like
She
just
knows how to
nails
be
it.
a mom, but like a creepy mom.
An unnerving
Unhinged-
mother.
Unhinged mom, yeah.
Unhinged mom.
So, according to Kaufman, Netflix pushed back against the film's aspect ratio because they were concerned that viewers would think there was something wrong with their TV.
That is hilarious. I mean, when I saw the aspect ratio, it is a choice.
Yeah.
Oh, I
I
like
immediately
it.
noticed it, but I
Yeah.
wasn't like, what's wrong with my TV?
Why isn't it working?
Yeah. I really like the aspect
Netflix?
ratio. Like, I kind of forgot that it was, like, you
4:3?
get so used to it, like, pretty quickly, and it makes everything feel pretty claustrophobic.
Is it 4:3? Did I just make that up? Is it 4:3?
I'm not sure.
Thank you.
4:3. Okay.
Thank you very much. I knew you'd know.
We had Jamie in the booth fact checking this real quick.
According to Jesse Plemons, they filmed about 11 pages per day, while 3 to 5 is the average.
That's insane.
That's
Huh.
wild. I mean, to be fair, a lot of it is in a car, so I'm sure they
Yeah.
could kind of, as long as the actors memorize their lines, they could get through it pretty quickly, but still, that's a lot.
Which is quite accurate to the book. They are mostly in a car.
Yeah, it follows the same exact
I
pattern.
thought they were going to be in a car the entire time.
In the book?
What?
Yeah,
I
thought
did as well.
I thought it was
I
going to
did,
be
yeah.
about the drive to meet the parents.
I thought so as
Oh,
well.
that'd be
After it was
kinda
like halfway
interesting.
through the book and they were,
they were
still in the car,
I was like, wow.
Was it really halfway?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
It was like almost.
something like
What?
that.
Yeah.
It's a long time. It's at least 30%.
Oh my God, okay.
I don't know about halfway, but
Pretty close.
So Charlie Kaufman quoted saying, he really liked the idea that even within Jake's fantasy, he cannot have what he wants. I think that sums up this movie pretty well.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we'll get into the synopsis and everything, but essentially he concocts this fantasy in his head of a woman, his dream woman, and she still doesn't even want to be with him.
No, not really.
Like, that's so sad.
Respectfully, that's his dream woman.
I guess.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. She doesn't even have a career that's the same the entire time.
Well, no, she has every career.
She has every
She's
job.
so
is the
incredible.
Everyday, like every woman.
She
does
is
everything.
literally the every woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Part of my research was done by our new research assistant,
Whoop, whoop.
our friend Sibia. So we're going to go into some of her research right now. So thank you, Sibia.
Shout out
Whoa.
to you.
Shout out to me.
Let's dive into the production a little bit. The editor of this movie, Robert Frazen? So bad with names. Anyway, he worked with Kaufman on some previous work, and he also edited Mr. Harrigan's Phone. Shout out Mr.
Did
Harrigan's
he
Phone.
really?
Yeah.
We love Mr. Harrigan's Phone on this pod.
Haven't seen it, but
You haven't
it's
seen
a
it?
Blumhouse movie, yeah.
What?
I know, I missed that.
You didn't come to the screening?
Mm-mm, I did not.
Damn. Fake fan.
I guess so.
Never seen it.
You know, that's so interesting
So the production designer on this film was Melissa Lombardo, and she also was the art director on the Harry Potter films.
Whoa.
So many Harry Potter connections. Very fun.
Wow.
Makes me happy. I don't know how to say his name, the cinematographer.
Spell it.
Lukaszz. And then his last name is Zal.
Lucazzo?
Wait. Hang on. Continue with your fact.
Okay. So the cinematographer, who also worked on The Zone of Interest, he quoted saying, "We didn't want to use any lens manipulations or strange effects to make this look like a dream or something, but we were going to do it in production design, in the costumes, in the composition."
Lucas Zal? I feel like Lucas.
Yeah.
Lucas
That's
Zal?
a very interesting
Yeah.
spelling of Lucas, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the cinematographer quoted that, and I really like that. Basically, the only ways you know that it's like not real, spoiler alert, is that we see it through the costumes, we see it through the set design, all that. Like, I feel like that takes more thought and work than just doing it in post, which, not to knock down post-production, because obviously that's a lot of work as well, but doing it in the production, making those specific thoughts going into it, I think that's pretty cool.
I agree.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Shout
it's much
out PD.
appreciated when you're as a viewer.
Yes.
So this is a review. It is kind of long, but I did shorten it a bit. So this is an A.O. Scott review. Al Scott review?
Mhm.
Don't know where it's from, but Sibia found it for me. So since being John Malkovich, Kaufman's movies ask, are we even real to one another, or does each of us project inner desires and anxieties outward, turning the faces and feelings of lovers, colleagues, and family members into mirrors of our own narcissism? Often that question arises and threatens to spoil a heterosexual romance. Men, in particular, have a habit of confusing the objects of their fantasies with the real women in front of them. This can be funny, creepy, sad, toxic, or sweet sometimes, all at once. I thought that was a really cool quote. I liked that
Sibia,
quote.
that was fantastic.
Thank you, Sibia.
Yeah,
for
Sibia
that
wrote
quote.
that.
she did the review.
I like that review a lot, actually. Helps contextualize some stuff. There's a lot to contextualize in this work. Yeah, that was a cool review. I like that.
Yeah, there are a lot of theories about male fantasy versus, and how that affects their ability to see women as people and things like that. I don't think I've read anything myself too specifically into that, but from the quotes I've heard from studies into that, it's amazing how media can go in and out of that, and how real world experience plays such a role in our content and how it's reflected. And yeah, it's a great review. I feel like that, like you just said, it very much contextualizes a lot of the film and the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on to some fun Easter eggs. The Nobel Prize acceptance speech, in the end, in the movie, we'll get there, is taken from the acceptance speech in A Beautiful Mind. The DVD is seen on a shelf in Jake's childhood bedroom. There's a lot of media in his childhood bedroom that is brought up a lot in the movie, so that's fun.
Yes.
Fun production design.
The movie is very aware of, like in the book, there's less so much emphasis, I think, on, how media affects us, but the movie seems to make a point.
Yeah, it's a big
Latch
part of the
onto
movie.
it,
Yes.
And Lucy's monologue, her name changes a lot, but we're going to call her Lucy for now. Her monologue in the second car ride is a section from the film critic Pauline Kael's review of A Woman Under the Influence. Like, exactly, word for word.
Yeah,
Pauline
clearly.
Kael, what did she do?
She's like a famous film critic.
Did she do? Hang on. Is she the one who wrote? She's the one who challenged
Eminem
auteur
to a rap
theory?
battle. Oh.
Isn't that
Sure,
her
what?
whole thing? She's the one who argued against auteur theory? Yeah, she's like the number one opponent of auteur theory.
And
Which
what's
is?
that? Yeah.
Oh, God.
Sorry. I don't remember much
auteur
from
theory
history.
is the idea that the director is basically the author of the film, and every way, and basically his, because it's pretty much always a man, his stamp is reflected in every area of the film. So like production design, I personally don't really like to subscribe to it. I mean, I think it's context dependent, but I think it undermines the collaborative nature of the medium a little bit. But in general, it's the idea that auteurs,
Is
Stanley
it like
Kubrick.
criticizing like when people People will just attribute literally
everything to the
about a movie.
director.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah, gotcha.
exactly.
Yeah, I don't like that
It's
either.
the director's vision.
Mm.
It's the director kind of, the director did this. I mean,
Dude, the director did a great job casting those people. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I mean, the director does cast, but like
Has a
casting
role.
He
assistant
has a
definitely
director.
helps.
He has like
Yeah,
there's
and it's
cinematographers.
like
There's color grading people.
the
There's a whole,
cinematography, like, I mean, Wes Anderson's a popular auteur, and like, Wes Anderson's a bad. I'm going on a tangent. Wes Anderson's a bad example of that because he does actually do a lot of his own
He
PD,
does.
but so that's why it is really context dependent. But like a lot of it really just depends. But Pauline Kael was the most vocal film critic against. That's why because I'm kind of a fan.
Yeah, I stand.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was our review section. Our
Can I read
our
one
research
review?
section.
Oh, sure.
I just found this on. I would like to highlight a positive and a negative, but I think I'm actually going to praise this movie pretty significantly. So I'm only going to read one negative review from Letterboxd. And this is a 5-star review
Whoa.
by Morgan. Shout out Morgan.
Shout out Morgan.
I don't want
That
to shout out
says-
Morgan.
I'm thinking of ending my Netflix subscription.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Good one. Good tagline.
That's funny.
Is that it? Was that the whole review?
Yeah.
All right, I like that. Shout
Those
out
one
Morgan.
sentence letterbox reviews are always the best.
Shout out Morgan.
Shout out.
Anyway, that was our research section. So thank you, Sibia, for helping with
Thank
that.
you, Sibia.
And now it's time for the synopsis section.
Oof, woof. Okay. I'm gonna try my best to summarize this. I'm gonna summarize the book, not the movie. I'm gonna try my best to get through this as succinctly and as straightforward as I can. It's gonna be tough, so bear with me, okay?
For the book,
For the book.
specifically.
The book specifically.
But they're pretty much similar,
Yeah,
so.
in case you've never read it, which maybe you haven't. Okay. Our main character, our protagonist, is thinking of ending things. Okay. She is unnamed, and she's recently gotten into a relationship with a man named Jake. And they are on their way to Jake's parents' house to meet them. And along this long, long drive, try to pass the time with long-winded philosophical discussions about life and niche topics. And our main character is constantly thinking about her life, her opinions on loneliness, her opinions on the unfortunate nature of human beings' needs for companionship. Really normal stuff to think about. And also on this drive, she keeps getting these dang old pesky calls from her own phone number. And they keep leaving the same voicemail, reminding her over and over that there's one question left to answer. And she knows she's going to have to answer that question eventually. And, but don't worry about that for now. And they finally get to Jake's parents' house after this long drive. And they have a really uncomfortable dinner. A really, really awkward and uncomfortable dinner full of bizarre games and not great conversation. And her dang phone keeps ringing. But don't worry about it. And then she explores the house, finds a basement full of some really disturbing paintings, goes to Jake's room, and finds some weird pictures, and then just leaves. Just a normal, nice dinner.
Talks to the dad.
Yeah,
in the bedroom.
talks to
They
the
have
dad for a
convo.
bit. They have a little convo about asking them to stay, and not leave. Pretty nice little convo with the dad. And right before they leave, the mom also talks to her, and tells her essentially that she's worried about her. She's worried about our protagonist, and they can stay if they want, but they decide to leave anyways. Little warning from the mom. Probably nothing to worry about. And then Jake decides on the ride home, because now they're leaving the parents. You know what? Midnight, middle of a snowstorm. This is a great time for Dairy Queen. And so they decide to go to Dairy Queen and get lemonade from Dairy Queen. Awesome. While they're there, our protagonist, she meets one of the workers there who seems oddly familiar. And this worker also gives our protagonist a little bit of a warning. She's worried about our protagonist's safety. Sure, it's nothing. And then they keep driving home, and Jake's like, these dang cups in here, they're going to get all sticky. We got to throw these out. So Jake decides to drive to the local high school to throw out the cups. And shockingly, he does throw out the cups. They get to the high school. It looks kind of abandoned. There is a truck out front, so someone's there. But that's probably nothing. And then he throws out the cups, comes back, and he starts smooching up on our protagonist. But then Jake sees somebody watching them from the school window, and he gets mad. So he runs into the high school to confront whoever's peeping on him. And eventually our main character, stuck in the car, decides, I better go after Jake. And she walks up to the high school and sees that the person who's in the high school and probably owns the truck is the janitor. And he does a goofy little dance or something. And then she's like, okay, that's weird. And then walks in to find Jake. And after walking around for a while, she can't seem to find Jake anywhere. It's just her alone in there. Jake is nowhere to be found. So she tries to leave, but the high school is locked from the inside. And the car's missing. The only thing there is the truck. Weird.
The car they drove in.
The car they drove there to get is gone. The only thing there is the truck now. So maybe Jake left her. I don't know. And and she keeps looking for Jake. She's walking around and trying to avoid this creepy janitor guy who seems to be following her around. And slowly as she's reminiscing about her life and her childhood and traumatic things in her past, she's starting to panic. She's starting to lose control of her thoughts. And the narration goes from being in the first person to the third person. She starts referring to herself as we and us, which is pretty weird. And she also starts to recognize the school more and more. She knows her way around, even though she's never been here. And as the question, what are you waiting for, repeats for a long time in the book.
So long.
For a very long time. It is revealed, surprise, surprise, Jake and our protagonist are one and the same.
What?
They've been the same the whole time.
Oh my God.
She's not real. And the janitor finally catches up with them. He's also Jake. Jake is a janitor at the high school, and that truck is his. He drove here himself. Whoa, crazy. Presumably, this whole night has been nothing but a dream. Maybe he was driving around at night. We don't know. But all those conversations about life, his feelings about himself, and his feelings about loneliness were all him thinking about it, not him having a conversation with his girlfriend. And the janitor informs themselves, that they finally still have one question left to answer, because Jake has been thinking of ending things. And he decides that he will. And he stabs himself in the throat multiple times with a coat hanger and bleeds to death. The end.
The novel is also intercut, right, with like people.
Oh, the police and stuff?
Yeah, people talking about.
Yeah. I didn't want to include that in the
of the
synopsis
body.
because that's even more confusing. I was
Sorry.
trying to keep it succinct. No, that's fine. But
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
the synopsis is over.
Though, yeah.
Yeah, they frame the story the perspective of the police after they find the body of the dead janitor. So there's a lot of dramatic tension. Somebody died.
Yeah.
The whole time.
You think it's a murder. It's framed as a murder for most of the book.
Yeah.
Somebody was murdered in a janitor's closet at a school.
Right.
And we keep getting little flashes to this scenario that the police are talking about, and slowly getting more and more details, and details start to line up in weird ways that don't seem to make sense right up until the end.
And it all comes together.
Yeah. It's really cool. It's really great. Really well written. Even if it's confusing, it's really, really well written and well executed.
This
in
is
my
probably.
opinion.
Oh, sorry. Go
Oh
ahead.
no, I think it follows like a clear pattern. Like we have the car ride, the house, the car ride again, the school. Like I feel like this, and the movie follows the book exactly in terms of that. So I feel like it's pretty easy to follow because of that.
Yeah, it's not hard to
pattern.
follow.
It's only when the identity shift happens for me that I was like, wait, did what I just think happened just happen?
Yeah.
And then this is the first book also I can say where I actually did have to do the good old classic ending of I'm thinking of ending things explain.
Oh, really?
Because I just wanted to make sure I understood correctly what it was. And then I was correct. No, but like just because I was so surprised by the ending. I was like, is that actually what just happened? And yeah, that is exactly what just happened.
Yeah.
Before we get to the ending, we got to start at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We love starting there.
We love
We
starting
do.
at the
That's
beginning.
our favorite place to start.
We've never ever not done that. Welcome, new listeners.
One of the things that's different is that we are introduced to this janitor from the get-go. In the book, we have, like Sam mentioned, these intercuts of people talking about this janitor that's dead. But in the movie, we are introduced to the janitor. We see him working. He is a character that we are familiar with, and grow to I really liked him. I just felt so bad. And so I think the intercuts definitely help break the slog of being in the car, like a lot of the time. I feel like normal viewers probably appreciate having a break from that with these short scenes with the janitor.
I think it's a good call. They Kaufman decided to get rid of the police were talking about the incident and instead just insert shots of the janitor going about his life, and you kind of infer from when they're inserted and what the characters are talking about when they're inserted that like, oh, this is clearly connected. I mean, I knew it was happening because I read the book first, but I imagine if you've never seen it, you can maybe start to piece together why they keep cutting to this janitor. Maybe.
Yeah. That is I don't know if it was effective or not effective, but this is one where I almost felt like the book and film were in collaboration, sort of. Like
Yeah, I would agree.
Like you almost like, I don't want to say you have to read the book to understand the movie, because I don't think that's true, but like you know exactly what's going on from the get-go because they show you. Like a moment for me is when Jake makes reference to the kids in town who perform Oklahoma, and they cut to the janitor in the school watching them play Oklahoma. And it's like, what other interpretation of what is going? Obviously, Jake and the janitor must be
they're connected
related,
somehow.
the same person,
Yeah.
something. They make it I think they make it very clear in the movie.
They do make it very clear. I will say I was kind of like, I wish they had waited to make that connection just a bit longer.
I agree.
Because, yeah, like you said, him talking about Oklahoma and then cutting to the scene where he's watching the students put on Oklahoma. I was like, okay, well, that's, now people know, like immediately, like you just gave it
no,
away.
Like, twist. It's just like you're watching what it is.
Yeah.
Well, you said you watched the movie first originally, right?
Yeah.
Were you able to piece that together? Do you remember if you were?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I also had listened to the podcast before, so I already kind of knew what was happening.
Oh.
So I spoiled myself.
I would be really curious to hear from somebody who just watched the movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Blind. Oh wait, I think we have somebody.
We have some
in the studio,
No.
but
we don't have someone in the studio.
Never mind.
Never mind.
Nobody's in the studio.
Never mind. I would be curious to hear from somebody who just watched the movie if they were or what they were able to piece together from it. Because my brain was already primed to understand that because of the book. So I don't know if it's effectively communicated or not. I would be curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think these, like you said, these are great. It's a collaboration. Like they work so well together. But yeah, if you're somebody that's only watched the movie, I wonder how effective it would be. I think it's still pretty easy to put together and understand, but I feel like the book just has so much more for you to get out of it.
Yeah, I would agree.
I really have nothing but positive things to say about the book. I mean, even just from the inner debate of our protagonist as she's just like contemplating what it means to be in a relationship and things like that. Like that was still interesting. There was not a part of this book where I was just like, well, like, I don't know. I was just like, the entire thing is just like,
you can read the whole like first 2/3 or whatever of this book as just a woman debating whether or not to end a relationship and like the pressures that come with that.
And it's still interesting.
Still good.
Yeah,
it's still
good.
solid.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty great.
Speaking of our main character, she has multiple names in the movie. Lucy is one of them, and he
It's the first one, I think. Right?
Lucy is the first one, yeah, and it changes. It's all L names.
It's like Lisa.
No, there's an Yvonne at one point.
An Yvonne?
Really?
Yes.
Okay, but they're all like based on media that Jake has consumed. Like Lucy was from a poem, but in the book she obviously doesn't have a name. Like, and it makes sense in terms of the movie because you need to see, oh, she's getting a call from herself.
Yeah.
Essentially, you wouldn't be able to establish that
Yeah.
without a
Yeah.
name. So,
True.
yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts on our main character, Lucy?
I mean, she is, I guess she's great. She's interesting to listen to, even though it is, I guess, Jake. It is just Jake thinking to himself from the perspective of a woman he's interested in. I don't know if we can even talk about her as a main character. It's hard to really quantify
she's just
that.
a concoction of everything he likes.
Yeah. I mean,
But also his insecurities too.
Yeah, I do love. At the time reading the book, obviously I had no idea the twist was coming. But like thinking back on all the time, there are so many times where she'll just like, she'll say something, Jake will start talking, and he'll be like spouting some really niche information trivia that he has. And then we'll just get inner monologue from our main character, and she'll just go, "Man, I love when he talks like this. Man, he's so hot when he talks like this."
Oh my god!
And
this
like,
is one of the times I'm attracted.
yes. And I'm like, looking back, that's so funny. That's such a funny way to write that.
He's so smart.
Because honestly, even though I didn't know the twist, it did feel out of character every time she did it.
Yeah,
she did it
Yeah.
a lot, and she'd be like, "Man, he's so hot when he talks like this." Like, what?
Yeah.
All right, I guess you do you, girl. Whatever.
True. I will say for me, when as long as we're talking about character still, like both the protagonist and Jake, mad respect for both the actors because I think they're both so talented.
I stand the Jessies so much. I love them both.
Yes, I did envision these characters to be younger when I was reading the book.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Maybe that's just me projecting, but I thought they were going to be significantly younger than they were in the movie. I don't know if that's also just kind of the whole like meeting the parents thing feels like such a, I don't know. It feels like a younger kind of thing, I guess. I was a little surprised to see that these are mature characters who are well into adulthood, right? And their parents are, I mean, the parents' age also changes, so it's a little hard to say how old they are necessarily. But in terms of casting, that was one thing that I was surprised by. I wasn't surprised by the performances. They were stellar.
Yeah.
Nothing to say about that. But like that was one thing that caught me off guard because from the book's characterization, I thought that they were both younger.
I imagine them like mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
In that range.
Yeah, what's interesting though is like I imagine them because I had watched the movie first. I had imagined them as the character. Well, I imagined Lucy as Jessie Buckley, but in terms of Jake, they clearly describe what he looks like.
Him in great detail.
Yes.
And he does not look like Jesse
Plemons.
No.
And that's okay. I love you, Jesse Plemons.
Yeah.
But it's a very different character description.
Yes, definitely. But like you said, like the meeting the parents thing is like that has the vibe of like younger people going through that. But I'm like, he also never experienced it, so that's probably like
True.
in his
That's
head. He's
true.
like, I don't know.
This is
I just
an
like this
experience.
character.
Yeah.
I like the character in the movie. Like it, anyway.
Yeah.
It's a heart-wrenching movie for sure. Speaking of, so we talked about agency in the last episode, and I want to get into it again, in particular with this character, because Reid's novel makes it explicitly clear that quote-unquote Lucy is not real, but Kaufman made the gamble of giving her more agency and like kind of trying to trick the audience a little bit. But I don't think that came across. I think in the book, she has more agency. Like she is immediately questioning the weird things that are happening in this house. But in the movie, she just kind of accepts it.
She's part of it many times. Like when she puts her head on the dad's shoulder, it's like, that's not someone who is, I mean, it's hard to say exactly, like, because in the movie, it does seem like when Jake is identifying with Jake versus the other characters that he's created for himself, you know, it's different. But so he'd be watching her, I guess. But yeah, I agree. It's well, I mean, part of that's because it's not always from her perspective, whereas in the book it is always from her perspective because she's our protagonist.
Yeah.
And so in the movie that's just not the case, I think, as much, at least for me.
Well, like she sees the weird stuff happening, like the dog shaking a lot, which we're going into middle territory a little bit. But and then like the parents obviously aging, and she just accepts it. She doesn't question why this is happening.
Well, to be fair to both book and the movie version, she is skeptical. She's more skeptical in the books, but she doesn't exhibit any agency because she can't. She does just go along with everything. She's like, oh, we're going to go throw away our cups in the middle of nowhere? I mean, I don't want to, I guess.
She argues with it, but
yeah.
To kind of bounce off that, it's like with the whole basement thing, I didn't want to jump into it, but I feel like to further my point, in the book, she's like, I am going to explore this house and I want to do that and I don't care what anybody else says. But in the movie, she's told to go down in the basement. So I guess that's what I mean. That's what I feel like she's just a pawn, which obviously that's the point. She's just a pawn in this universe. But I feel like in the movie or in the book, she actually has more, she thinks about things more. I don't know.
She acts with intention.
Yes.
But the other thing too is that like even when she is acting with intention in the book, I was always under the impression that this character, like, she's looking at this always through the lens of the relationship. When she sees the picture of the girl, she's like, is this an ex-girlfriend? When she, you know, like she's always like, even what she's doing, she's never looking outside of the content. Like, it's weird because his parents are weird, but she's not like, is this person gonna kill me? You know, like she's never leaving the context of analyzing her relationship on a baseline of I'm looking at this as my relationship that I'm in, and is this weird for a relationship, not for the world that's been created. You know what I mean?
That's true. I feel like the only time she thinks outside of Jake is when she talks about her sleep paralysis and
Yes.
seeing people outside her window,
Mhm.
like figures. That's not in the movie at all.
No.
That's just a.
I don't know how
book.
they'd get into that though.
No, it doesn't really fit anywhere.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like little character building stories that get told while they're in the car that are just not in the movie because they
True.
can't. I don't know if they could work the same way that they do in the book. Like the whole story with her like driving teacher, nowhere to be found.
Oh yeah.
That's not anywhere in there. Yeah, the whole thing with the sleep paralysis and the guy at her window, the entire like reveal of what that comment comes from, like the one question left to answer, whatever. The lady that tries to take her away. I don't think that gets brought up in the movie at all. I'm jumping ahead.
What?
The lady, she tells a story about this weird lady that she knew as a kid. Said she was going to take her away from her parents if she was bad.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
was
the
that not
cookie.
Jake?
Huh?
Was that not Jake?
I don't think that was
Jake's
Jake.
story.
Yeah, I'm just saying stories that like help
Oh, okay.
characterize
The
these
cookie,
characters.
right? Or she thought her mom was poisoned.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Sorry, I swapped topics midway through that.
No,
My
no.
bad.
There's so many stories
Makes
in
sense.
this to like dig into, stories within the stories.
Yeah. Yes.
There's just so much content.
Definitely. Well, speaking of like the collar, which you mentioned was a factor in the book synopsis. The collar, it's brought up in the movie, but it's not that big of a deal. Like
No.
I feel like that's such a creepy moment in the book. His voice messages, like it, and the audiobook narrator is really good at making this like slightly feminine, higher pitched voice.
Yeah.
That's like so unnerving.
It's a very distinct choice for
yes.
a voice. It's really good.
Well,
and
the
that,
calls. Sorry.
just to finish like that thought, but like it the collar adds that level of horror that the
Yes.
movie kind of takes out of.
There's
Anyway.
several things like that in the book where that seem like horror, and then or like you. It seems like it's leading into. To me, I thought she was going to be murdered at the end.
Yeah.
And the calling is one of them. And then jumping forward a little bit ahead in the narrative, don't worry, we'll go back. But like when the parents are like, you should really answer that call. It's like you start to think Jake is in on this. Jake is going to kill her. Jake is involved. The parents are involved. He lured her out here. You start to like put the pieces together with these unrelated pieces of information. Those calls that she keeps getting, and the way that the world reacts to that is so important for the genre, I think, and for the clues that it signals to the reader that it's just very different in the movie. Because even when they are like, you should answer it, it's not in the same way.
No.
They're more like angry about it, right? Or like irked.
Yeah, a little.
Yeah, there's like concern, sort of. They're just like it seems like they're weirded out that she's not answering it, instead of being like, you should really answer those calls. What if she's in danger?
Well, I would be weirded out if somebody kept
Got,
getting
like,
a phone
ring,
call.
ring,
I'm like,
yeah.
obviously that's an emergency. Like
Yeah.
you should check to see if they're okay.
Right. I mean, it was a normal reaction, but I think in the book, the way that it's phrased, at least from her perspective, seemed a lot more like them being like, you need to answer that call.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, why do they know what this call is?
Speaking of the characters, Jake and Lucy, like together, I personally felt like they had more chemistry in the book. Like at least they could hold like conversation.
They did not like each other in the movie.
They did not like them.
Not at
like, at all. Like
No.
they were so awkward in the movie, and their conversations felt forced. Do you guys have thoughts on them
I
as
just
characters like together?
Jake seemed like annoyed with her in the movie, I thought. There were several moments where
Oh, yeah.
I thought he was like losing his temper with her, or getting frustrated with her. And she did the same with him, but that was in the book.
Yeah. I do love the whole they make it very, very obvious in the movie. This is another way they do it really well. Where whenever she's like thinking out the window, he'll like interrupt her.
Yes,
It's
I was gonna
really
mention
great.
that.
I love the way that is portrayed. He'll like interrupt her thoughts and like ask her like a really pointed question whenever she starts thinking of something that's like a little too negative.
Yeah.
He'll just like
Yeah.
jump in and like say something.
Yeah. And of course, that makes sense with where the story ultimately goes.
Yeah.
Works very well.
But yeah, they as a result of that, they don't really have much chemistry in the movie. Whereas in the book, she's constantly saying that they don't have chemistry. She's like constantly being like, there's something missing. We don't quite get along. But whenever they spark up a conversation, they usually have like a pretty
It's an engaging dialogue.
a
for
good
sure.
conversation. But every time the conversation will end, she'll be like, this relationship, nothing's going on, which is so sad knowing like where it is or where it's going and everything.
Kind of leading from the car scene into the parents scene. Jake actually does talk during the dinner scene in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, in the book, he's silent. And I feel like both are effective in showing this. He's not perfect. Like, he might think he's perfect, but he's not perfect.
But you know what else is missing that I just remembered with you bringing that up? The impersonation.
Yes.
That was so scary to me in the book when he did that. I was so sure. I was like, he is going to kill her. When they did the little impersonation game. Okay, for the listeners at home, Lucy goes to dinner. And the parents, after some very awkward conversation, are like, let's play a game. Lucy, imitate Jake. And then Lucy's like, what? I don't really do that. And the parents are like, go on, imitate Jake. And so she like does a little impression. And then Jake is like, okay, I'll go. And then he does a perfect impersonation of his girlfriend.
So
like
creepy.
To the T, all of her mannerisms and everything. And it's like super weird. And it freaks out our protagonist. Justifiably so. That whole scene, so scary, not in the movie.
Yeah, why didn't they add that?
That would have been so scary.
Yeah, and his silence is also very creepy.
Yes.
Sure, yeah, Jesse Plemons, like, he gets angry during the dinner scene, which is also scary in its own way.
Yeah.
But I think just the fact that he's like not engaging with anyone after he's been talking like this whole time shows his relationship with his parents very effectively. Like, he doesn't want to be around them like at all.
Yeah, he like immediately switches to a different person in the books.
Yeah,
because he just like can't. He loves to talk and like have long-winded conversations in the car ride the whole time. And then as soon as they get to his parents, he just doesn't say a thing.
Shuts down.
Right up until he imitates her. That's like the one time he says anything.
It's silent, and then he's like, "My turn," and then he just busts out this perfect impersonation.
And also talking about the collar and stuff. That's what also adds to that scene being so uncomfortable in the book, is because it just keeps ringing, and they do, like you said, they'll just stop talking and be like, you should answer that. Yeah. You should go check what that is. It's probably important. And
it's like, probably important, Lucy. Yeah. You should check what it is.
Very unnerving scene. Love that scene in the books. Yeah. I love the scene in the movie as well for different reasons. But
yeah. Oh, yeah. The constant switching, how they met each other.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. It's great. Well, I mean, I like one of the ones, it's just that's just such an interesting conversation. I think they do it really well in the movie when Jessie Buckley's character is like, she says something that's like contradicting the previous story. Like the mom is like, I thought you said you meant like this. And she's like, I did. Ha! And it's just like, whoa, it's so freaky and weird. And then it does take you out of the perspective of the protagonist though, because she's not being normal either.
They first quote unquote met at like trivia. And then once our janitor watches this fake movie, which I love, then it switches to...
Is it a fake movie?
It's a fake movie, yeah.
A fake movie directed by Robert Zemeckis.
Oh, yeah.
With the girl from The Boys.
From The Boys.
So that the janitor watches that movie during his break, and then their story of how they met switches to, oh, she's a waitress, she waited on me.
Which is what happens in the movie.
So another reason of like, or another example of like, the media we watch changes who we are as people. Really cool dialogue. I like it.
Yeah, yes, you're right.
No, everything about like the little hints they drop throughout that entire like dinner with their family in the movie is so fun to try to like pick up on all of them. There's just so much. I was telling you about all the stuff that I was just like noticing. Her glasses are never the same ever. She's always changing jewelry from scene to scene. Her clothes are different. The parents' age obviously swaps all the time. They're just constantly changing ages throughout the whole dinner. Like the bandage on the dad's head is like constantly changing sides.
And aesthetics after dinner when the mom changes a dress in the book, but she changes her whole demeanor in the movie.
Yeah.
When she's like, go through this in the wash.
Yeah, but like from scene to scene there, both of them are just constantly getting like slightly older. They'll get like a little bit of age makeup and then it'll go away and you're like, am I insane? Did they just change something?
It's so smart.
It's really, really smart. Sometimes I notice this is a great, Toni Collette, the mom, she like at some point she'll like start finishing the girlfriend's sentences about how they met.
Yeah.
She'll like chime in and be like, here. And then she'll like say it.
Like, yeah.
It's great. I love that scene in the movie so much for like catching. They do such a good job of dropping like hints just in dialogue, not through like any other outside thing, but just through the way they talk to each other.
And
clearly something's wrong.
And And like jumping off that, like what I found interesting is Lucy, her behavior starts changing and starts reflecting the mom. Like she starts doing the weird laughs and starts I wrote it down. She's stuttering, she's very loud, she's acting like the mom. So it's like Jake's putting his mom on this fake woman, which is wild, but I thought that was a really interesting touch.
Also, just a side, I love every time Jesse Plemons, he goes like, Mom, like he'll do that whenever he gets angry with things. Like, Mom, stop.
He's so good at being whiny.
Really
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's the meeting of the parents, and then in the book she goes down to the basement of her own volition. Then heads up to Jake's room where she finds a bunch of photos. One in particular of a girl and a guy she doesn't recognize but kind of looks like Jake. In the movie, though, she's told explicitly to go into the basement by the mother to throw something in the wash, and she doesn't find any paint. No, she does find paintings.
She does find paintings.
But
yeah, the paintings are different.
Yeah.
The paintings are of the pictures she shows on her phone to the parents.
Right. She shows. So first, one of the jobs she says that she has. I sound
One of the
insane
many.
explaining this.
If you've never seen this movie, this is the craziest. This makes no sense.
One of the jobs she tells the parents she has is she says she's an artist, and she shows the art that she's done on her phone. She goes down to the basement and she finds her artwork that she showed earlier.
They're landscape paintings. Specifically in the movie.
That were done that are exactly the same as hers in the basement. Her work is in the basement. Why?
With Jake's name on it.
With Jake's name on it. That's what she finds. She doesn't find weird portraits, which is what she finds in the book.
Yeah, they're more like, they're creepy. They're like figures.
Yeah.
Creepy figures.
Yeah, they're people drawn in really weird ways in front of in place of where the furnace is, I think is what they say in the book. There's like a furnace in the basement, but whenever she looks at the painting, the furnace is gone, but there's like a different person there.
Yeah.
I'm truly not sure what the symbolism is there.
It was very
I couldn't figure it
eerie.
out.
It was weird to read.
I'm gonna have to look up a YouTube video for that one.
It just reminded me of like serial, like everything just signaled serial killer, you know?
Yes.
And you know, in your head, you're like, are these victims? Like, who were these people? Like, what is this?
I think that's the like twist that the book is trying to lead you. That's what I got let down. That like, oh, these people are in some kind of weird like family murder cult.
Yeah.
They're like clearly trapping this woman.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Because there's like the paintings, and then like I mentioned the synopsis, the mom like warns her before she leaves, like, you know, open this up when you get there, you know, be careful. And it's like, get where?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but then that is not the twist. But that's what I think they're going for.
The entire time it's signaling like, it seems like everybody knows that Jake is going to kill her the entire time.
That's the vibe.
But of course, that's not what happens at all.
Everyone except for the girl. She never once thinks that, actually.
No, not at all. That's there is this like thematically there's this power imbalance the entire time, which is so funny because you think that she's in control of the whole situation. She thinks she's in control of the whole situation. Weird stuff starts to happen where you're like, she's gonna die. She still thinks she's in control. She's like, when all this is done, I'm gonna break up with him. And like, she never ever is like, I'm in danger until she's at the school, which we'll get to. But and then of course the entire power balance flips on its head, and she's, you know, it's just funny the way that it.
Well, because
works.
once she's at the school, she is in danger because it's
Right.
getting towards the end.
That's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she goes into the room. She doesn't find the picture of the girl.
No.
I would like to bring up the brother, but we'll get there in a moment.
Yes,
that's gone.
Totally absent from the
Completely
from the
gone.
movie.
And I don't. We can evaluate that in a moment. So she has this moment with the dad. The dad is like, you can stay the night if you want, further lending us to be like, why? What do you know about your son? Does not happen. Well, in the movie it does happen, but also he's just different in the movie, I thought.
He starts getting dementia, and there's like
he's much older in that moment.
Yeah, he's older. There's paper stuck on the wall to like help him remember things.
Yeah.
So when I first saw it, when she opens Jake's bedroom door, there's literally a sign that says Jake's bedroom. I was like, that's kind of stupid. Why would you add that?
Yeah.
But then he mentions it. I'm like, okay, actually, I buy it. That makes
and then when
sense.
she walks out, it's on every door, but it wasn't there before.
Yeah.
That's great. Good shit.
Yep.
Liked it. Well, you mentioned the picture, but there's another picture. When they're in the living room, it's of a young Jake, quote unquote young Jake, but it actually looks like a young Lucy or our young main character that doesn't have a name.
Yeah.
I liked how it's portrayed in the movie because it literally is him, and then when she turns back, it's her. But in the book, it's just like she's like, this looks really old. Like this looks way older than what he should be. Like, why is this his childhood photo? And also that looks like me. That's weird.
Yeah, and he just like gaslights. He's like, no, that's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, no, that's me. It's like fully her face.
Just like an insane scene.
Yeah. So that picture is still there. That's in the book, and then that's in the movie.
Yeah, I liked it though. I thought it was cool.
I did love the beat where she finds the picture of the other girl. I thought that was something that was missing because we're still in our relationship territory in the book. She's still like, is this guy in love with his ex? Is this guy lying to me? She has no idea what's going on because she's too wrapped up in the relationship context of what immediately is. She's like, Jake didn't talk much about his ex, but who's this blonde girl and who's the guy in the photo? And then
That is really interesting.
that's just not there.
Mm.
I mean, they're a lot older, and at least to me, I thought they were a lot older, so it makes sense that she didn't really care that much in the book either. She was like, I'm still gonna break up with him. But like
Yeah.
but, you know.
She loved snooping, that's for sure.
Oh,
She
yeah.
liked
I did love
exploring on her own.
Just like Coraline.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whoa.
Our episode from so long ago.
That's what I had for the middle section before we move on to them in the car. Did you
Go to
guys
the
have
car?
anything else?
Let's go to the car.
Let's jump into the car. I actually don't have anything in the car, but do you guys have anything in the car?
This
I'm
is
trying to think of what happens in the second car ride.
Oh, they go to Tulsi Town.
That's
Well,
This
yeah.
is different.
I
I
was
would like
thinking-
to add, I think it's funny that they changed it from Dairy Queen. Why? Did Dairy Queen say no? You didn't get clearance for Dairy Queen for
Maybe
this?
they just didn't want to pay Dairy Queen, so they just made up a new.
I mean, it kind of makes sense
Or
with the
Dairy Queen
janitor
would pay them to be featured.
in this context. I don't know.
What?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Product
Maybe.
placement.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd still have to get it cleared though, probably.
Hmm.
But
And the way their shakes are showcased, they probably were like, that makes it look disgusting, so we don't want that representation.
that's true. Yeah, they don't want to eat it and then they immediately throw it out.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, going back to this whole media trend, it's like that whole queen clown of the ice cream land. Again, I sound insane explaining anything in this movie, but
Watch the movie.
watch the movie, please.
You won't get it.
You know, when they're driving there, Jake bursts out into song quoting a commercial of the ice cream queen, right? Turns out we find out at the end this is a real commercial in the context of the world and not in real life. This is a real commercial that the janitor was familiar with. Probably he's an older gentleman, probably from his youth, seeing this commercial.
Yeah, it's
So-
like a black and white, like animated.
yeah,
little
it's an
commercial.
old commercial about the queen of the ice cream land, and that's where the logo of the ice cream shop comes from. So it does make sense that they didn't use Dairy Queen because they lean more into this, like, this is all created in the janitor's head thing. Like, this ice cream shop is literally like from his
The thing
childhood
he-
memory
yeah.
of a commercial.
Mm.
Yeah, it does look very 50s.
Yes, like
vibe.
it's not, it's not just a Dairy Queen, but that's the movie's prerogative.
I like it. I like the name Tulsi Town. I think
is.
it's cute.
The girls there,
Yeah.
it's not exactly how I imagined it in the book.
Okay. Why?
I imagine it more natural in the book. I guess, like, I don't know if you've ever been around two girls who do not like you in your life. The giggling isn't so
Obvious.
yeah. It's a lot more kind of like side glances and like okay. Like
Yeah.
it's, and that's what I was expecting, I guess, from the perspective of our protagonist, who is also a woman. She's like picking up on like, okay, like these girls are acting like really weird towards me. In the movie, it's extremely on the nose, I guess. It is explicit. The girls literally, they're like, you want an Oreo burr? Ha ha ha. And then they like run to the side. And I was like, oh, and they're also wearing matching lipstick.
Mm.
Their aesthetic is exactly the same. I thought it was weird. They look
I
like
thought they were
twins.
twins.
Yeah,
When I was watching this, I was like, are they supposed to be twins?
And then this other girl comes out. She's like,
What?
she's all freaked out.
That's
she's like,
verbatim what she does in the movie. If you haven't seen it, that's verbatim what happens.
she's all worried about it. It's
She
all the same as the book.
squawks.
It's the same as the book at that point. She warns Lucy again. Lucy's like, what are you talking about? She's like, you don't have to go with him.
Yeah.
Lucy's like, huh?
I'm
I'm
sure.
gonna go with
I'm
him,
sure
and
it's
I'm gonna
fine.
break up with him.
Yeah.
And
We're
Don't
gonna
worry,
make it home.
I got this.
We're definitely gonna make it home after
Yeah.
this.
they get in the car. They drive to the school.
Mhm.
It's all the same as the book.
Yeah.
Well, and the girls.
Except they get ice cream in the movie and not lemonade.
True.
That is true. She's not
She's
lactose
not
intolerant.
lactose intolerant.
Yeah, that's never brought up in the movie at all.
I mean, it is kind of a non-essential.
No,
I mean,
it's,
but she like mentions like one of the things going back to the dinner scene. They're like they have milk-based products,
Right.
and she's like, "Oh, did you not tell them?" Like
That I'm lactose intolerant.
like
Yeah.
that's one of the things that she notices as like a red flag, kind of.
she knows that, like, oh, he's not paying attention to me or whatever. And so
Right.
that's
More fuel to the fire,
Another
I'm gonna
like,
break up with
I'm
this guy.
definitely gonna break up with this guy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's also used because at this point in the book, it's really not until the very end is it revealed that it's all in Jake's head. So at this point in the book, it is sort of dropped as like a hint for like the meta like police report that's going on,
Yeah.
as like another hint that like, what is this murder that happens at the end? Because one of the like details they mention about the body is like, oh, this guy was lactose intolerant. But you're like, wait, no, she was lactose intolerant.
Mhm.
And then you start to like, it's
That's true.
It's dropped in. It's not super important, but it's dropped in as another like hint to get you questioning what's going on with that police thing at the end.
Yeah.
If you're like paying real close attention. They do that with like the tinnitus. His like mom has tinnitus,
Yes.
but they
Exactly,
mention
yeah.
it with the deceased guy at the end.
You
They do a
know,
lot. Every little member of Jake's family and his girlfriend all have like little pieces of him that
Which
get
makes
dropped.
sense.
Yeah, yeah.
And that reminds me, actually, I said I was going to talk about the brother, and then I forgot to talk about the brother. That's what happens on the drive home.
Yes.
That picture of that girl who our protagonist thinks is his ex, we never find out who she is. But the guy, Lucy asks Jake, who's that guy in that picture? He says, it's my twin brother. Are they twins? I don't remember.
No, actually, I don't think he says twin brother.
I think he's actually older. He's like,
Yeah.
that's my brother.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's he's super awkward and weird and nobody likes him. And he wishes he was me. And he's such a loser, he can't get a job. And it's like, that's he really does not speak highly of his brother. He's like, he's super weird, he's taking my clothes. And he has this whole thing about the brother, which is weird for our protagonist because
She'd never heard of him before.
What brother? They've been dating for how long have they been dating again? Nobody knows.
An indeterminate
6
amount of
weeks?
time.
6 weeks, 6 months, who knows? Forever. She's like, what brother? You never told me you had a brother. And so yet again, we're leaning into this horror thing where it's like, oh, Jake's not going to kill her. Jake's brother's going to kill her, right? Or, oh, Jake and his brother are working in tandem to kill this girl. At least this is the direction my head was in
Yeah, same.
when we were at this point in the story. Like,
That's really interesting.
they
I
just-
never
no,
got that,
not
but
at all.
that's because I watched the
book
movie.
does a
but-
great job of constantly giving you new threads to be like, I see where this is going.
Exactly.
I've seen horror movies.
Yes.
Oh, the brother's gonna do it.
The brother's the
Like,
one.
oh, the parents are in
yes.
on it.
Exactly.
It keeps introducing new things, and then by the end, it just sucker.
No,
punches you.
exactly.
It's just
But
like, oh,
I want to bring up the brother. The brother is not at all in the movie. But in the book, it was another one of those moments where I was like, oh, this is a horror thing. You
Yeah.
know, like the twin brother, like the one who's actually the one out there killing people or whatever. Like,
I've seen this cliche.
I've-
You're not gonna
I've
trick
seen
me.
this- Yeah, exactly.
And then he did.
And then he did. And so, you know, but that missing from the movie is another way that the movie kind of leans more into psychological thriller than horror.
100%.
Yeah, the movie's not really trying to trick you.
Nope.
Where I think the book is.
Yeah, that's one of the notes I made about the movie. Like, this movie does not try to be anything that it's not. It
Yeah.
never. It is exactly what it is the entire time. It basically tells you it's the janitor the whole time.
Mhm.
Speaking of the janitor, can we dive into the school
Let's get to the school.
section?
Let's
Okay.
go to the school.
So they make it to the school. Lucy is wandering around the halls. And she's wandering around the halls way longer in the book than she is in the movie. Like, she is trying
Yeah.
to find hiding places.
Mhm.
The school seems never ending. And she's trying to hide from the janitor. The janitor is more of a creepy entity in the book than in the movie. And
Yeah.
I think that, again, that adds to the reason why this book I would consider is more horror, because that scene is so, where she's wandering around is more scary.
It's a cat
like,
and mouse game, and
Yeah.
that's not in the movie at all.
yeah. So I really liked that ending where she's, I could have been shortened a little bit, because it did kind of drag on a little bit, but I appreciated that more than the ending we got in the movie.
And the
Personally.
movie is very different.
Very
like
different.
in the book, at one point, I think they mentioned the janitor like crawling. If I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
I mentioned it briefly
Oh,
in the synopsis,
yeah.
but I didn't like get into it.
Yeah,
when she like
he
sees the
is-
janitor for the first time,
and he's like on the ground or something.
He's like standing there with a mop for like a long time, not
Right.
moving, or like doing like a weird like shake, and then she like looks away and looks back, and he's on the ground, and then he is described as, I believe, crawling or slithering away.
Yes, yeah.
Ooh.
He's doing something terrifying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the word, I think It's either crawl or slither.
I like
think,
slithering.
Maybe both
That's
are used.
creepy.
It
I
was,
don't remember.
it was, yeah.
And it's just like,
she's like, what? At one point in the book, also, she goes into, I think, the locker rooms, and she's like, why are Jake's clothes on the ground?
Yeah.
Jake got naked. That's not what she's thinking. She thinks that the brother killed him.
Yeah, whoever this janitor guy is.
This janitor killed him.
This
and-
freak.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think is a more effective ending? Do you like the creepy ending of the book, or do you like the dance sequence /
Oh my
Nobel
gosh.
Peace Prize
I have
scene?
been wanting to talk about this so
right.
much. Okay,
We're
listen.
getting into it.
This is what we-
Listen.
This is what we've been waiting for.
So, when I first saw that dance sequence, well, first of all, what did you think when you saw that dance sequence? When you see the two dancers step out from behind our Jessies, what did you think?
Well, it is reminiscent of the Oklahoma.
It's not just
dance
reminiscent, girl.
rehearsal.
It is the Oklahoma thing.
It is.
It is. That's how that was my like aha moment. Is like I've seen that movie so many times because I'm insane. That stepping out thing. That's exactly what happens in the movie musical.
Okay, that's really smart.
And the wedding thing with the dancers, and then he pulls them off. That's the same thing that happens in Oklahoma. It's literally the exact same
so it's
dance.
just recreating
It is the
dance.
Oklahoma dance dream sequence. That's what they
Wow.
do during that last part of the movie. And like at first I was like, there's a dance. I literally wrote in the notes, what's with this Oklahoma dance number? And I was like, that's the Oklahoma dance. Oh my, it's all coming together. It's Oklahoma. It's the end of the play. And it's like, it's the end of the play. That was, I was so excited
You
about
got
that.
hyped up for Oklahoma.
Yeah, well, and then of course, I mean, I'm jumping ahead a little bit in the movie, but like when he's on stage and he sings Judd's song, first of all, I love that song. That's not in the movie version of Oklahoma. That is in the stage version of Oklahoma.
This is news to me. I don't know much about Oklahoma, but
I know a
love
lot
this.
about Oklahoma.
Great.
Not that much. I'm not that crazy. Thank you. I'm not that crazy about Oklahoma.
Talking to.
But I will say I like it enough to have watched it like every day in my parents' minivan growing up as the DVD that would play in our little DVD player. So
Sick.
Love
I
that.
loved Oklahoma. And yeah, it is the same dance routine. I mean, I think there are changes for the movie. I mean, there's a lot more dancers in Oklahoma, but all the beats of like them getting married and then the guy like pulling them off and
The guy
like,
gets stabbed at the end of Oklahoma too?
yeah.
Oh. Oh, damn. Okay.
I mean, it's not the same. Actually, now I'm trying to think about it. Yeah, he does get stabbed. Judd's song. Judd is it Jed or is it Judd?
I think it's Judd.
Judd. Okay.
Yeah.
Judd in Oklahoma is trying to get Lori, and Jake in our movie, the song he sings at the end is like the melancholy song that Judd sings in his heart, where he's like, "I'm never gonna get Lori," which is such a bummer. It's so sad. It's like it's just so like it's all sad, very sad. But that whole dance sequence. That was like I felt so good about myself. I was like, media literacy moment. I recognize that dance.
Hey, you got it.
I nailed that. Sorry.
You got what he was going for.
I felt good.
Yeah.
You know.
So
I
was
did
that
because I
effect-
didn't get it.
Okay. See, and I figured it like as soon as I saw it, I was like, we're going to talk about this. For me, it was very effective. I felt like because I understand the context of Oklahoma, because I've seen that movie so many times, seeing how it played out here, I understand what he's trying to talk about in the story right now. I understand this whole dance sequence, the separation from reality, because that's exactly what happens in Oklahoma. And so it's like it's the additional layer of I'm watching a movie where they're recreating Oklahoma. To understand why that matters to this story is very creative and I thought effective. Of course, not in the book.
No, not in the book.
How would you do that dance routine in the book?
I don't know. Yeah, and it's another way that they kind of break away from the horror genre a bit is by making this creepy scene a dance sequence.
Yeah.
It is beautiful ballet.
Yeah.
And it's funny too because it is exactly like that in Oklahoma. Like, you know how the ballet dancers like don't look like Lucy or Jake?
They get totally different dancers, like
Yeah,
actors.
it's
Wow.
actors that step out from behind them in exactly the same way. They look not like our two lead actors. I mean, they have like they're the actresses are both blonde, but like that's the only similarity. It's like it's the same difference between our ballet dancers and our actors in Oklahoma. It is the exact same thing. And I'm thinking of ending things, and it's like it's so intentional. It just drives you crazy.
It's pretty neat. I still like the book ending more.
Fair enough.
As a horror fan.
That makes sense because we are no longer in horror. We are making creative decisions.
Oh yeah,
outside of our genre.
Big swings.
Big swings.
Big swings, and I respect them.
Speaking of big swings, the Nobel Peace Prize
Oh yeah.
scene is also a big swing.
Mhm.
Yes.
He's singing Judd's song, like
Yeah.
you said. Jesse Plemons is. And
That's also not what it's called. I don't know what it's called. I forget. But
it's a song
it's
from
a song
Oklahoma.
from Oklahoma that Judd sings that's not in the movie.
He's on stage. There's a set that looks like his childhood bedroom. In the audience, people that we've seen throughout the movie are dressed in old age makeup.
Very obvious old age.
Yes.
Not like good old
And he's also in
Yeah.
old age makeup.
Yeah.
So that is a totally fabricated scene for the movie. That was not in the book at all.
Hmm.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that scene?
I'll be honest. It was about at that scene that I started tuning out from the movie. It wasn't connecting with me. I didn't know anything about the dance, but at that point, when he's talking and starts singing at the little award ceremony, I gathered that was from Oklahoma because Oklahoma had been mentioned a few times previously in the movie. That Jake really likes musicals and specifically liked Oklahoma. So I was
The
like,
kids perform Oklahoma every year.
and he really likes it. So I gathered that was a song from Oklahoma, but I just was like, I have no connection with that song or the play.
I used to love that. I used to like listen to that song on repeat. One of the versions
Wow.
that they have
You
recordings
are a
of.
theater kid.
No, I know. I mean, not like in the modern day. I couldn't tell you anything that came out after 2016, but
What, did you watch the Hugh Jackman version?
yeah.
Okay.
There's
That's
a
the
Hugh
only
Jackman
version I
version
know.
of
Well,
Oklahoma?
yeah. I've listened to that recording. Yeah, of course, there's a Hugh Jackman version.
Duh.
He's
Obviously.
great, and you should watch it. I'm
Silly
pretty
me.
sure it's on YouTube. I think.
Oh.
Actually,
Yeah.
I could be wrong here, but
We should watch it.
it's really good. He's excellent. Well, also, I did take one very excellent course in college on the history of the American musical, and Oklahoma is pivotal because it is the first American. Sorry, it is important though. Oklahoma is the first American musical where the songs that were playing advanced the plot of the musical. Before that,
The
point,
first one?
yes.
Oh.
Before that point, it's the first. It's Rodgers and Hammerstein. Before that point, musicals when there was a song, it was just a song, and then
It
they
was
would
like a little
continue the
break,
action.
yeah.
Exactly. Oklahoma was the first one where the characters are advancing the plot through the songs, and the ballet sequence is important in that because the plot is advanced because of that ballet sequence.
That's so interesting.
is
Because
cool.
now
That's
that's
the
such
context.
a staple in musical theater. Like the
Right.
song has to advance the plot.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like, why are you listening to it? Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like that's all from Oklahoma.
Wow. That's really
I
interesting.
love Oklahoma. I've watched. many
I'm glad
versions
you
of
know
Oklahoma.
about it. Like that really
stan.
adds to this episode.
I mean, you are genuinely making me appreciate the end of the movie more, knowing this stuff.
I don't think you need to rewatch it or anything,
No,
but
I'm
like
not.
I will say, like, yeah, but I will say, like, I'm sure I knew watching it. I was like, this is gonna be. I'm just not to assume. I just kind of assumed you weren't going to know. What,
Yeah, no.
I was. This is gonna be a fun conversation because I wonder what it was like for somebody who didn't understand the reference of the ballet and Judd's song as watching it as it was for me, who I did just because I like Oklahoma. There were a lot of references I also did not get. You're talking about the Nobel Peace Prize? I mean, the Nobel speech?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was.
Yeah. I don't know.
It might be original, but judging by the rest of the thing, it might not be original. It might be straight ripped from some other piece of media that we just don't know about.
Truly.
Maybe.
Because like it seems like most of the dialogue that happens from Jake in the movie is from something else.
Mhm.
It always is. The poem that they say at some point is like literally just
Bone
from
dog.
yeah,
Mhm.
just from a book. Yeah, so I don't know.
I think that also ties back to his dream of wanting to have accomplished something and he never got to. I think it's mentioned in the book, I don't know about the movie, where he was like a professor who was going down that path and then he just stopped. He quit.
Mhm.
And then he ends up becoming a janitor. So I think that scene at the end kind of shows like this is what he wanted to do and never did.
Yeah, it's true.
Which is
Well,
sad.
yeah. And it's funny because in the book, part of the things going on in his head are like, Jake wonders what would have happened if he had given his number to that girl he met in the bar so many years ago. There is like this feeling of regret and aging. That's when we were talking about the aging makeup, like age comes up a lot in the movie.
Yes.
Mhm.
Like Lucy talks about what aging means frequently. And it's kind of like, why? Until you understand, of course, that we're getting this from the perspective of someone who has lived for a very long time.
And this is kind of throwing it way back, but like in the car scene coming back, one of the monologues that really stuck with me from Jake was him talking about how people always talk about like greener on the other side or like those platitudes of like things will get better. And he starts getting like really frustrated. And I was like, that really stuck out to me as that's basically how he feels. It's like he made it that far in life and yet he feels like he has nothing to show for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I think the movie hits the age angle of like
Yeah.
depression really hard. And the book hits, I want to say, just like a feeling of isolation and like stagnation. Because this is something we haven't mentioned yet in the book, but I really love all of these little moments, especially once we get to the end, they make more sense. We get a lot of moments of Lucy finding like just like the story with the pig that is just sitting there rotting and nobody came to help it. There's a really small scene where she's exploring the bathroom and she finds a fly that can't fly anymore.
Yes.
And she decides to kill it and put it out of its misery because
Yes.
it can't fly. There's all these little moments where throughout the book that she's just like finding these things that just like, just somebody put it out of its misery because nobody's here to help it. And like that, I think, is the angle the book hits more, that feeling of just like isolation and like pointlessness, where the movie hits age really, really hard.
Yeah, that's a really good analysis. I agree.
Yeah, I like that. Well, should we talk about how our main character, Jake, dies? Should we get into that?
Sure.
Are we ready to jump into that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the end of the book and the movie, Jake does kill himself, but he kills himself in different ways. In the movie, he dies by hypothermia. He gets in his car and it's snowing, it's cold, and he just stays in there. In the book, he stabs himself with a hanger, like you said.
Yeah.
Which, again, adds to the horror element. Visually, that is shocking and gory. How do you guys
like a
feel?
clean way to go.
No, not at all. So how do you guys feel about these endings? Is there one that you prefer more so than the other?
I remember the book ending.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
The book ending, the way that he ends it in the book is just so like, I am struggling to put into words the feeling that it gives me, but it's upsetting to say the least. I mean, I'm envisioning like a rusty old hanger. Like that's what came into mind. I don't know if they describe it that way, but that's the visual that comes to mind for me. The movie doesn't hit the murder as hard. Not murder, sorry. The suicide is hard.
It's cleaner, definitely.
Yeah. The movie, not romanticize, that's not the right word. Like more fantasizes it. He gets like, he sees a little animated commercial from his childhood, and then there's a whole thing with like an animated pig. It's all sort of like flowery and like, I don't know, I'm trying to find the word, not like artsy. It's portrayed in a very expressive way, where in the book it's very like matter of fact. He stabs himself a bunch in the throat with a hanger.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be fun or like artsy or creative. It's just sad. It's just like, oh, that's what he did. And it ends. It's like, oh, okay. I think they're both trying to hit their own tones, and I think they both do it well, but the book hit me much harder.
Yeah.
Hits you over the head.
Yeah.
At least for me. It's
Yeah. I had completely forgotten that that's how he kills himself in the book. So it took me by surprise with this reread. But yeah, like you said, each version works for the tone of their medium. The hanger would not have worked in the movie that Kaufman directed. I don't think.
That would have been very jarring.
Yeah.
The hypothermia could have worked in both, or like the book as well. But I think the hanger scene, it's straight to the point. It's not clean. It's not pretty.
It's dark.
Right.
In the most literal understanding of that.
Yeah, I mean, the hypothermia is still like a pretty brutal way to go, but he like covers it up with all the like imagination stuff that goes through his head as he's like dying.
Yeah.
So not as gruesome, I guess, even though it is still pretty gruesome when you stop to think about the way he went out. But yeah.
Yeah. Because I think when you die of hypothermia, you feel like you're getting hot, weirdly enough. And that's why he was like taking off his clothes and stuff, that's scary. I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what did you prefer, the book or the movie?
This is such a hard question. This is one of the hardest ones I think we've done so far.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, same thing I said at the beginning of this episode. It's like, I almost feel like you need the book for the movie. That's how I felt, at least.
I feel like that's such a hard thing to say for me because I read the book first. So I don't know if I can confidently say that. That's why I wanted to have somebody who had watched it first.
Well,
With
you
no
watched
context.
it first. Oh, but
Yeah.
you know
You
the
knew
context.
something
I knew
about it. Yeah.
how the story goes, yeah.
I don't think it's that hard for me to pick one. I like the book significantly more.
Okay.
Again, referencing back to our Coraline episode so long ago, I really appreciate when a piece of media can make me like feel something. I like that. I like when not the movie was a lot of me going, cool. Wow, that's a neat thing you did. I really appreciate what you're doing here. This is great. Nothing happening here.
Oh, in the heart.
Yeah, nothing in my
For the listeners at home.
You know, in my little soul. But the book was able to elicit so many things out of me.
Yeah.
Being very unnerved, being very uncomfortable, and ultimately being very empty and hollow by the end of it. And the book or the movie did not. The book was, or I keep mixing up. The movie was like very top level cerebral appreciation for like film as an art form. Like, wow, cool ideas. But it didn't like impact me where the book absolutely did. And so I prefer the book more in this instance. Though they say that the movie is bad, I think it's great, but I much preferred the book this time around. Surprising for me.
Yeah. That's cool.
Not to piggyback off you, but I think you said it. Like it's the cerebral appreciation. Like I loved the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely gonna recommend the movie to people because I was watching it and I felt like I was still discovering things and the story was still unfolding and it was still all so interesting. But I agree in terms of like I related to the character at certain moments of the book. You know? Yes. I felt for her. There was, you know, and then I felt for the real character at the end. Mm-hmm. And I agree. The way that you put, I don't have anything more to say than what you said. It just felt so good to be impacted by a piece of media like that.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, it is tough to choose between these two because they make such a good pairing. I highly recommend reading the book and watching the movie. I will say I would most likely revisit the movie more than the book, I think, because I do like the stylistic choices, the direction. I feel like there's so much little details that you can find with each viewing. Like there's a lot of things you mentioned that I didn't notice at all. So I think it's a movie that's worth rewatching. But I do appreciate the book's horror elements a lot more. I think with a different director that played along with those, it could have been more in my vein of things. I think more my style. But I appreciated both for different reasons.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's really hard for this one.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like it's underrated right now. We talked about how it was really, like, at the time it came out, it was, like, controversial or whatever. I'm surprised people don't, like, currently still talk about this movie more. I mean, maybe just because this is my first time viewing it or knowing anything about it. Like, I really feel like it's a little underrated. I don't know if that's ignorant. Maybe everybody knows about this and I don't. But
yeah,
for someone who's a little out of the loop, I was like, can't believe more people I know don't, like, reference this.
I think it's maybe just a little too inaccessible. Not to say that we're like, oh my God, we're so much better. We appreciate
another level, another plane.
But it's like when most people are turning on Netflix to watch a movie, they're not turning on a movie to watch two people talk in a car for 40 minutes about like poems. So like, I feel like that's just the way it's made is not for everybody. And so that's probably the reason why it's not talked about more, even though I think it is very good. It's not designed to be accessible. So it makes sense that it isn't accessed by many.
But I see where you're coming from because you're in LA. You're from a kind of a different world where you're around entertainment people a lot. So I can totally see like being like, why don't people talk about this more on like when we talk about like Letterboxd top 4? Why aren't people bringing this up? Like
a little bit. I'm like, why not?
Yeah,
like, I feel like I know a lot of people who would like this kind of inaccessible movie, but maybe they do, but it's not in their top 4. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But you should watch it.
Definitely recommend.
Listeners.
Please.
All right. This versus that.
Oh boy.
No.
There's nothing crazy.
Really?
Really?
Okay.
Really?
Okay, I don't like the look you just gave.
Really?
So I'm thinking of ending things Toni Collette versus Hereditary Toni Collette.
Oh my God. Wait, but what is the versus for? Like to be your mother?
In a fist fight?
Whatever.
In a fist fight? Yeah, who would win?
Just whatever
I
you want to do.
More parameters.
Okay.
How are you answering the question, Michael? What are you
okay. Yeah, you do it. Whatever.
I'll answer based on what you say.
This is a very broad question in terms of, I don't know, performance? Are we basing it off performance?
I don't know. Whatever you want to base it off on.
I don't think performance is fair because in Hereditary, it's like about her. She
Yes.
is mother.
Yeah.
You know, she's just a
She's
mother.
mothering.
You know, fist fight could be a good one.
In a fist fight? Well, we'll do in a fist fight. Well, considering that she is like constantly dying in I'm thinking of ending things, I think Hereditary wins in a fist fight. Hereditary Toni Collette stomps her out in a fist fight. Depending on what age she is.
No, see, that's what I'm saying.
Oh no, this is such a tough question. I'm putting my money on Hereditary Toni Collette.
It's just that Hereditary Toni Collette.
Oh
It's just that Hereditary Toni Collette has so much more opportunity. I'll never forget her voguing when she's like, then she goes, you know, that moment
She locks in.
Iconic.
when she locks in, there is nothing, unfortunately, in her performance, and I'm thinking of ending things, there is nothing that can top that moment in Hereditary. Obviously, it's Toni Collette. Like, need I say more?
She's always great.
Okay, how about who would you rather have as your mom?
Okay, yes.
Who do
I
we rather
mean,
have
one
as
of them
mother?
sacrifices their kid to a demon.
See, this is why I think
That
it
is
is
true.
I'm thinking of ending things mother
Spoilers.
because I believe I'm thinking of ending things character. She's just
I think she's actually a great mom.
I
in
think so
that movie.
too. She's just a little, you know, like maybe she's a little hard to get along with, but like she loves to build on the story of how you met your boyfriend. Like
Yeah.
she loves to participate, and she made dinner,
Mhm.
cute outfits.
Little Yule log.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. Yeah,
I'm
go
gonna
with-
go with I'm thinking of anything. It was Toni Collette.
That's my mom. Agreed.
I agreed.
Yeah.
She's all our mother.
Mother. Say it, Michael.
She's mother.
Yay! Alrighty. Janitor versus Jake.
What?
What even is this?
I was struggling.
Daniel versus Cooler Daniel. what is this question?
In terms of the character, obviously they're the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you were to choose which version of the same character,
What? Wait.
I don't know.
Are we thinking of Jake, who I think might kill me, or are we thinking of Jake, who's my boyfriend, who I want to break up with?
See, I didn't read it as he wanted to kill her
Oh.
ever, so I can't
Okay.
help you with that.
Hmm.
This is such a crazy versus. You really were struggling.
I was struggling.
Because we're comparing nerdy, kind of awkward college guy who's about to be a professor to really, really sad janitor man.
Right.
And
It's
it's
like,
like,
ooh, would you rather? Like,
I mean, I guess that's kind of the whole thing he's dealing with is that I would prefer.
oh,
I
no.
would prefer the college version of himself.
Oh.
Whoops.
I'd prefer Sweet Janitor in the movie. If we're talking about the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they are
Because
different.
I do not
Jake is
want-
like he's kind of an asshole to his parents in the movie. But he's so nice later on as a janitor. But
Also, hold on. And you just reminded me of something. There's like a little implication that happens in the book that they never touch on. It's when she finds pictures of his high school girlfriend
Mhm.
in the house. She also
A
finds
bunch of pictures.
a bunch of pictures of just individual body parts.
Yeah, super close up.
oh,
And
This is the whole serial killer thing.
Yes.
This is why I was like, these are his victims.
Yeah.
He paints his victims. He lures them to the school.
Is So-
and then he kills them.
I would
His
have.
brother kills them.
I never would have gotten this implication if it wasn't for the movie, which is why I think I agree. They're good to see together. They help you understand each other.
Mm-hmm.
Is the implication that those aren't real? All of that was a fabrication, or is the implication that Jake, as an old janitor, is like taking photos of high school girls?
That's an interesting
Ooh.
because
he's more of a villain in the book.
well, also
It's kinda creepy.
because Lucy finds those pictures in the
In his
school.
room. No, he finds it in his
No,
room.
both. She finds him in the room, and then she goes. No, yeah, she finds him in his room, and then she goes into the school, and then she finds the pictures again. Doesn't she?
Oh, you might be, or she finds pictures of the girl in the high school or
I
something like
can't
that.
remember, but
You
she
might be
finds
right.
pictures twice.
Yes.
And then she turns, and then the room's been locked,
Mhm.
and she's like, "What?"
Yeah.
And so you're right.
It's something we never touched on, and it also was something that kind of got lost on me by the time I finished the book, but I thought of afterwards. It's like, wait, is the implication that
I
he's
don't know.
like creeping on high school girls? Because then there's that whole story about the driving instructor that is
Right.
like, whose perspective is he telling that story from? Is he telling that story from the perspective of somebody who was creeped on by a driving instructor? Or is he the driving instructor in that story and he's creeping on a high school girl?
Right.
This is a whole angle
That's
that we
an
didn't get
interesting
into.
interpretation.
I thought about
I
this
mean, it
afterwards.
sounds like it's the second one. That's yeah. I feel like you're right. I didn't look at it from that. I honestly forgot about the pictures until.
Yeah. Sorry, we got off on a topic.
No, but
Anyways,
it's
I'm picking-
interesting because in the book he's painted more as like a villain, while in the movie he's more of a victim.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd have to go with Jake no matter the situation. Just based on the conversation we've just had.
Okay.
It's either sweet janitor, well, maybe, but sweet janitor is pretty cool.
I liked him a lot.
I like sweet janitor.
Janitor in the movie is
Evil
a really
janitor,
nice
I'm
guy.
good.
I didn't like Jesse Plemons' Jake, but I tolerated Jake.
But
in
I
the
would take
book.
evil Jake over evil janitor.
In the book.
True.
An insane conversation.
True.
An unhinged conversation.
Yeah.
Ready to move on?
Yeah,
I
let's
think
move
so.
on.
Okay.
Sorry, I sidetracked a bit because I remembered the picture thing.
No, that's I think helped the conversation a
point.
lot actually. Frozen lemonade versus Oreo burr.
Oh, this is hard. It really. So I have a thing.
Is it hard?
Yeah, I have a thing because I don't like having dairy when it's hot outside.
What about in a snowstorm?
Really?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't like having ice cream if I feel like I can feel it in my mouth. But like if it coats my mouth, we have a problem. So I don't like having ice cream if it's hot and if it's sticky, which comes up in the book. So I love lemonade when it is hot outside. When it's cold outside, Oreo burr.
Holy, are you real? That's an insane opinion. That's crazy.
That's the point of this section.
Yes. You know what?
Listeners,
Great question.
drop in the comments if you agree. Do you
I only
hate
do the
having
best of
ice
the
cream
best.
in
Do
your
you hate
mouth?
the way the feeling of ice cream coating your mouth?
I just don't really like milk in general.
All right. Sure. That is an opinion you
So,
can have.
Yeah.
I'm going with the Oreo burr on this one.
Wait, we agree?
What?
I said Oreo burr.
thought you said
Oreo
lemonade.
Burr. No, I said Oreo burr.
What was the whole
Said
spiel?
lemonade in hot weather.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it was a snowstorm, so obviously it's Oreo burr.
Your answer's insane. So you're going
It's Oreo burr.
you're going with Oreo burr. But
Chat.
so long as it's cold, you're going with Oreo burr.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I
We
understand. your answer.
agree.
So okay.
Sounds like we're on the same team.
No, we don't agree because I'm going with Oreo burr, hot or cold, probably. I don't like
Okay.
lemonade that much.
I love lemonade. I
I'm
go
sorry.
through like bottles of lemonade.
This
I'm
is
a huge fan.
specifically frozen lemonade,
Yeah.
which
love
I
it.
stand frozen lemonade more than regular lemonade.
It depends on if there's dairy in it. You know how like Chick-fil-A's lemonade has like dairy in it?
It is? What? Really?
I might have just spread misinformation. I don't know. I thought there was for a second. Now I'm confusing myself.
We
I don't
spread
know.
a little bit of misinformation on this podcast every once in a
I
while.
never do that. What are you talking about?
I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. Oreo burr.
I would also say Oreo burr.
Okay.
It kind of looked weird in the movie.
Well, it looked like Dairy Queen. She did the thing,
yeah,
didn't she?
she did.
Should
Yeah.
you do the bit?
She flipped it up
Yeah.
upside down.
For audio listeners, I did this.
That's not helping at all. Yeah, Oreo burr. It looked kind of gross, but I'm interested in trying it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll
I'm
get 'em on the way
assuming
home.
it's like an Oreo McFlurry.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's more
Yeah.
like an Oreo milkshake.
Yeah, then I'm down for
Burr.
that.
I mean, we watched her make it,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, we
So
did.
we know how it is.
She poured stuff in a cup.
And then went like on the.
Yeah, she
You know?
did the thing.
So true. She did. For my audio listeners, I did that.
Anything. Anyway, that was my this versus that segment. Is there any final thoughts you guys want to say about this movie or this book before we move on?
Please read and watch both. They're really good. I can't recommend them enough, but they're good. Please do it.
The first
Yeah.
book that actually unsettled him.
The first
Yeah.
book I think I actually really loved
Wow.
of this
Yeah.
whole podcast.
Okay.
I get it. I totally get why you're saying that. Yeah, I don't know. Highly recommend this one, y'all. Like you said, I don't think the movie is for everyone, but I think they work really well together if you read the book.
Yeah.
And the book is very short, so
Oh, yeah.
anyone could read it or
Get it
listen
from your
to
library.
Yes, support your local library.
Mhm.
We stan libraries.
Mhm.
Alrighty, thank you for listening. Our next episode is going to be doozy. We're going to be looking at The Shining, which no one has ever talked about The Shining.
I've never heard of it.
Ever. So make sure to check that out. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Dreadful Digest Pod to keep up to date. Okay. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye bye. We love you.